Sono qui per questi 2 giorni di incontro con il cast e avrà subito a presentare il cast a partire dal produttore, il braccio destro di Robert Downey JR e Susan Lane nella neonata Team Downey, che vede in The Judge il suo primo film prodotto, il produttore David Gambino. Di The Judge c'è un regista conosciuto per lo più per le commedie, queste nozze in particolare, e anche l'autore della storia insieme a Nick Shank, che è uno dei cosceneggiatori. Diamo il benvenuto a David Dobkin. Sapete, ha fatto già parlare molto di sé al momento della presentazione al Toronto Film Festival, perché consente l'incontro di 2 grandi attori, 2 attori che hanno fatto non solo la storia del cinema americano, ma in qualche modo anche delle classifiche del cinema americano. Uno dei 2 può contare il maggior numero di titoli che abbiano superato al box office mondiale negli ultimi anni $500 milioni, ben 6 titoli. L'altro può contare il maggior numero di titoli presenti nella classifica stilata dei migliori 100 film stilata dall'American Film Institute. Anche in quel caso c'è qualcosa che rilega non solo le cifre ma molto altro. Questo è il prestigio di questi 2 grandi attori che accogliamo con un grande applauso. Robert Downey JR. Allora, in attesa di dare la parola ai giornalisti, ai colleghi, per domande che credo che siano il più possibile appunto, come dire, dirette per consentire a tutti. La prima domanda qua.
Buongiorno. Buongiorno. Buongiorno.
Y'all ready?
I'm ready.
Perché c'è la
Just pretend it's on.
Ok, grazie intanto per questo film.
non possono tradurre.
Il microfono è spento però. Allora, grazie per questo film, e siccome è un film in cui ci sente molta verità, e questa è la prima volta in cui voi vi siete incontrati sul set, volevo da parte dei protagonisti sapere com'è stata la creazione di questa alchimia familiare, e da parte del regista com'è stato gestire 2 leggende e scrivere una storia di questo tipo.
Just got to know each other. Hanging out, eating, going out, a little bit of rehearsal, trusting, and professional actors, you come in and do the job. When they say action, you go to work. When they say cut, you stop. And you do that during the course of the day, and when the day is over, you come back the next day. So you prepare yourself and just, this guy's easy to work with, these people are great to work with, and we're professional actors, that's what we do for a living.
To know Bobby Duvall is to eat with Bobby Duvall. This man knows a good meal. Thank you. But we wound up, like Bobby said, just spending time together as a family. Morning, noon, and night, sharing meals, sharing experiences.
Actually, Robert, you already had 2 movies before with Bob.
Yes.
We did?
They just didn't have any scenes together. We weren't really in them together. But I just heard that Mr. Duvall has the most movies in the top 100 best movies of all time, and I said, Bobby, is that true? He said, that's right, catch up.
I always don't get paid accordingly, but on this one.
It was just it was a father and son story. It was a family story. Family was the most important part of it. It came from, we wrote the movie from, it started as something that happened to my family and an experience that I went through losing my parents and taking care of my parents as they got older. And Robert and Susan Downey, who's not here because she's having a baby in a month. Robert's baby. And David Gambino and I sat in a room for a few years and we created this story together and really worked on it until we got a good script. And Nick Schenk did a great job laying the foundation originally, and Bill Dubuque, who was the last writer, did a phenomenal job delivering on the potential. And then it was up to the acting, and I got very lucky and fortunate that I had the best actors in the world behind this movie.
A very smart script, very smart. They led us along.
As it is a father and son story, we know not so much about Robert Downey Sr., as he was a filmmaker, let you play with 5 years, I think. And one thing I read, once you needed $2, and he didn't give it to you, because of a certain purpose. Could you tell us something about the relationship of Robert Downey Sr. and Jr.?
He's an asshole. Father-son relationships, mother-daughter relationships, all very complex. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to your countryman, David Gambino here.
Yeah.
We don't make a movie unless an Italian person says it's okay to. And David actually knows my dad pretty well. So why don't you talk about what an asshole my dad is? I love him, he's great.
He is the original renegade filmmaker, and I can say that I see a lot of Robert and his father in not accepting mediocrity, always trying to break boundaries and create new ways to tell a story. We're actually putting together a tribute for his father in December in Los Angeles. It feels like it's about time to have the younger audience discover some of his films, which were so influential in the early 60s, late 60s and early 70s.
See, this is what happens. If you don't give your kid $2, eventually one day he does a big tribute for you.
Sì, c'è una domanda lì su quello.
Ok, vado. Allora, buongiorno, sono qua, grazie per questo film. Io mi sono proprio commossa, mi sono messa a piangere, grazie per le belle emozioni. Allora, volevo chiedervi, intanto, che cosa vi spinge a scegliere un copione anziché un altro? In questo caso credo sia questa ottima sceneggiatura, però insomma, e poi che cosa vi hanno lasciato questi personaggi? E poi, visto che c'è appunto un produttore italo-americano, che cosa vi piace del nostro paese e che conoscete del nostro cinema? Grazie.
That's good cinema, great history, great, and also great stories about the great stage actor from what was his name? The great stage actor from Sicily that came and people from the group theater couldn't get over how great he was as Othello. He was a great Sicilian.
Salvo Randone?
Salvo Randone.
Giovanni Grasso. Giovanni Grasso. So you have a great history in Salvini going back, even further back. You have wonderful actors here and very creative people. What's the question again?
The other question was, what makes you choose one movie?
The character. I think you look for the character first, and then you see what the full script is about, who you'll be working with, the director and everything. But I think the initial choice points towards the character. How can I make this a little different from something else I've done? And this as I said before, this script is so smartly written. It's such a wonderful team here that was, you just had to jump in and do it, you know, and it called for a lot from each of us, you know, to really dig deep, which we did, I think, and hopefully it was successful.
It left me thinking more about family and having closure and making amends and all that stuff. Obviously, you know, Italy and Italians have so influenced back and forth, and so many of the great American directors are Italian, telling Italian stories both abroad and in America. David and I are developing a story to shoot in Italy, a Pinocchio story. So to me, my idea of a good time would be doing a truly Italian story with some American sensibilities and shooting it in Italy. That to me would just be the ideal circumstance.
You know, sometimes you think of little things that inspire you, which mean nothing to somebody else. When I spoke of Giovanni Grasso, they said he would do Shakespeare. He would also do very cheap melodramas. And at the end of the play, he would drink poison, stand up and fall over. He said it was phenomenal. So when I think of that, you know, I can think of that right before I go on. And a little story like that might give me inspiration. Really works from one actor from another era to now. Giovanni Grasso.
Buongiorno, una domanda per i due Robert, visto che avete detto che questo film vi ha dato l'opportunità di riflettere maggiormente sui rapporti tra padre e figlio. Volevo sapere, visto che entrambi siete sia genitori che figli, che cosa c'è un errore che secondo voi nel rapporto tra genitori e figli bisogna assolutamente non fare e una cosa da fare per cercare di salvare dei rapporti incriminati? Grazie.
To make it work?
Yeah, to make it work and to avoid to make it work.
I don't think there's any set answer. Set solution. It's individual, yeah. You try to communicate and very difficult. All families I know throughout the world, South America, Europe, the United States, it's very complex. You can't do away with the family entity. You cannot do away with it like some people try to do.
Robert, do you want to elaborate on this?
I think Bobby covered it.
Shara,
Thank you. Now the question is to Robert Jr. Working on this film, drawn by your own experience, I was wondering how do you feel regards the justice system? Do you trust it, or in its formal as it is? And during working on this film, did you cross this personally? You cross this question of the system of justice, if it works today or not?
That's a very simple question, thank you. Yeah, I think it's kind of broken and it kind of works at the same time. I was on the flight over here, I was reading a very simple little story called The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire. And, you know, nothing really changes. David, what say you? You're the ones who produced this theme. By the way, I'm sitting here, it's so funny. It's David, Robert, and then, of course, Francesco.
I think it's inappropriate for Gambino to comment on the justice system.
David? I think there's personal justice and then there's the law. And I think that it's very complicated when those two things cross. And that's why justice is a very, very complicated issue for all people, because there's a thing that feels right to you, and there's the thing that as a society you have to stand for. And the movie certainly embraces the complication of that. You know, there's a man of justice who may or may not have taken the law into his own hands for personal reasons. And I think that it asks and posits some bigger questions because of that.
Beh, domanda laggiù, facciamo un po' così e così.
Buongiorno, allora una prima domanda per il regista e i produttori. Questo è chiaramente un film che strizza l'occhio ai film classici americani e credo che la citazione di Atticus Finch in una scena in cui c'è Robert Duvall la dica tutta. Volevo sapere se c'è spazio all'Hollywood per produrre film come questi e invece a Robert Downey volevo chiedere se dopo tanti eroi e supereroi delle ultime stagioni, se non è liberatorio come attore interpretare un uomo imperfetto come Hank. Grazie.
You know, look, we love these movies, and you know, Hollywood doesn't make movies about people with movie stars in it for the most part anymore. But we grew up with these movies, and we wanted to make a movie like from another era, you know, and you know, some of the directors that I love. By the way, I love Fellini, I love Antonioni. Those are some of my favorite directors when I was a young student. And my favorite directors are Italian-American directors, are Coppola and Scorsese. So there's certainly, and their stories are always about family and they're always about people. And so we look back at this time period of movies that we grew up with, and we wanted to make something that was cut from the same qualities and the same values. You know, that was struggling in our time with questions of family and loyalty and the constraints of the your sense of justice, even underneath the roof of your kitchen. You know, what's right and what's wrong. So I love that you asked that question, because we care very much about it, and we hope that in America we continue to make movies like that in Hollywood. You know, but they're still being made, but you don't always get a chance to make it with guys like this. So,
But they still make them.
yeah.
It's in the independent filmmaking society now.
Yeah.
The films of the 70s, the films of the independent filmmaking would be in the 70s, and now they're removed to the independents.
That's right.
And it's easier to raise $100 million to knowing the $100 million movie is going to fail anyway.
Well, they don't all fail, Bobby. And by the way, I think what was liberating was just getting back to developing characters and talking about story and having these simple moments. Because to me, the sense of home that's depicted in this film is not typical to just the United States or Indiana or Colorado. We wanted it to kind of feel like Oz. We wanted it to feel like everywhere, you know, a small town in Europe, a small town in the Far East. It's something, it's just that myth of going back to where you came from.
I would like to you, Katie, say something about the first part of the question. I mean,
sure.
As this film being the first one by Tim Downey, what is the room for films like this?
I think there's definitely room for movies that touch the heart and, you know, make you feel and make us care. You know, we all go to the movies to be moved and have that magic take over our hearts. And, you know, there's room for all kinds of films. And I think, you know, this movie really is an anomaly, being able to be made in the studio system in the year 2014. And it's a testament to the power of these two guys and our director, a great script that we can do it. But you know, I think everything is cyclical. I think we are in a time right now where people are looking for escapist entertainment, because the world is complicated, and you know, we're all looking for 2 hours of respite from what's going on in the world. But you know, at the end of the day, we want to escape, but we also want to be touched, and we want to feel, and we want things that relate to our own lives. So I hold out hope that there's going to be a lot more movies like The Judge, and I think as filmmakers, it's our responsibility to keep trying to push the envelope and force studios to say yes when it's easier to say no. And Warner Brothers really stuck their neck out for us, and said yes on this movie when, you know, ordinarily other people probably wouldn't have. And we're really happy about that.
Una domanda lì e poi c'è una domanda.
Buongiorno, una domanda per Robert Downey JR. Volevo chiedergli come mai ha sentito di questo film e in futuro quali film vi premettete di produrre. Grazie.
Well, I like my wife. And she's a great producer, and you know, you get scripts, and rather than just fielding material all the time, we thought to start generating it. Now, just to be clear, a production deal in Hollywood means that the studio goes, God darn it, they're going to waste a bunch of our money, but we want them to do this movie in 2 years. So usually it's about actors and actresses or movie stars wasting a bunch of a studio's money. And we also try to...
They're willing to pay.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, we like this courtroom drama. We're developing, like I said, a Pinocchio. We've got you know, a story about Perry Mason that we're interested. We have a story called Yucatan. It was a Steve McQueen story that he was developing. And suffice to say, we just want to develop more movies for Bobby Duvall and I to do, so we can come back to Italy and talk about them.
Hello, my question is for the director. When Palmer is going back to its first place, it passes not the past, the past is the present. So do you consider childhood as the most important part of our life, whether you are becoming an adult?
I do. I think what happens to us in the first years in our relationship with our parents is what we live out the rest of our lives with. And I think that as adults, we have to recognize that there are things we did to survive whatever it was we went through as children. And you have to, as an adult, address that. Maybe you did something that allowed you to get through those hard years that is keeping you back in your adult years. And the only way to get through those choices is to look back on them and to connect with your family and reset yourself as an adult. And I do believe that if you don't do that, you never quite grow up, to be honest. And this movie very much embraces that idea that you need to take a moment and go back to your family at some point as an adult and make your amends of sorts. You have to reconnect and check back in with each other and say, who are we now? What happened in the past? Let's leave in the past and let's find a way to move forward. At least I feel that in my own life, and I've seen that with many, many people. And I think that I think it's important. But I do believe that as children, we're always looking for a way to get back home. We always look back at the very pure time. And the question is, can we get back there? And I think that the movie takes a very hard, realistic look at how difficult that is, and at the possibility that perhaps we can.
Abbiamo il tempo per le ultime due domande, la prima lì, la seconda per la signora che alza la mano.
Hello, my name is Rita. I'm from Finland, not from Italy. First of all, congratulations, amazing movie and unbelievable actors you two guys there. Incredible movie. I would like to ask, can you answer only with few words? What kind of fathers do you think you have been?
All of you, I think.
Yeah.
All of them, right? What type of father, right?
I'm a stepfather. I try to do the best I can, but these guys are little fathers. I'm a make-believe father.
I'm okay. I'm pretty fun.
Thank you.
It's fun taking a bath with me when you're two. Lots of bubbles and slivers. Maybe a popsicle.
Qui davanti? Wait, Mike.
Your mother passed away recently. I'm sorry for your loss. How did she influence you?
I think like anyone's mom impresses them, you know. And it's also, I think, an appropriate question for David because so much of the story was based on that.
My mother and I had a very volatile relationship. We didn't get along very well most of my childhood. And after my father passed away in 1999, and in 2005 my mother was terminally ill with cancer, and all of a sudden I had to be very close with her. And I kind of felt like that kid in the boat with the tiger in Life of Pi, where you're like, how am I going to get through this? But we did, and there was a lot of love, and there was a lot of affection. It was still very difficult. But when she passed away in 2007, a week later, I started to write the story about this family that the movie was about. But I think we all have, you know, eventually, once we started to develop it, again, David Gambino and Susan and Robert, and we all brought our own. I think what you see in the performances is people's truth. What you see in the story is a lot of people's stories, and I think that we are very lucky. Everybody came with open hearts and great intentions to this movie, and I think that's part of the reason why it came out with a very special feeling.
Bene, per concludere volevo fare un'ultima domanda ai due Robert. Quali sono i film dell'altro che più vi hanno emozionato? E una domanda in particolare a Robert Duvall. Quest'anno stiamo celebrando i 20 anni dalla scomparsa di Massimo Troisi.
Massimo Troisi died 20 years ago.
E lei, Massimo Troisi, e lei ha lavorato con Massimo Troisi tanti anni fa in Hotel Colonial, e un suo ricordo di Massimo Troisi.
You worked with him many years ago on the movie Hotel Colonial. What do you remember of him?
I remember the movie was terrible. Rotundo was wonderful, great cinematographer. And we did it in Mexico, which was not a pleasant experience because the food was not that good. But Massimo was always came in with a great sense of humor. He was a terrific guy to work around. It's been a long time, but I enjoyed it very much. And the gentleman from Rome who did the music for Impostino also did the music for the film I directed, Assassination Tango in Argentina. A wonderful composer. But we had a great time working in Mexico with Massimo because we talked soccer, football. It was wonderful man.
You were speaking about Maradona?
What? Oh yeah, because at that time they were saying Maradona is better than Pele. That was the argument. That dates me. And what really dates me, I saw Pele play when he was 16 years old. Great sport, soccer. I love soccer. Great sport. Robert.
The movies you like of each other?
I mean, I can't think of a bad Bobby Ball movie.
I can.
It's not going to get any better than that.
But you remember a performance that touched you most?
Yeah, it's really this one, to tell you the truth. You know, it's like you were saying. You know, your childhood is now, your career is now. You know, I think Mr. Duvall has done his most impressive work of his career in the last 10 years. So.
Thank you so much. Great part. I was fortunate. I say thank you for the part, and thank you for the good food.
Grazie.